one of the reasons I write my feelings is for my grandkids, because they're pretty young still, but that they'll see, hey, she loved animals and she loved the earth. That there was something good about her, unlike what my parents are telling me.
Hey there, my name is Sean, and this is Suicide Noted. On this podcast, I talk with suicide attempt survivors and ideators so that we can hear their stories. Every year around the world, millions of people try to take their own lives, and we almost never talk about it. We certainly don't talk about it enough, and when we do talk about it, many of us, most of us, we're not very good at it. So one of my goals with this podcast is to have more conversations and hopefully better conversations, in large part to help more people in more places feel a little less shitty and a little less alone. At least that is the goal. Now, if you are a suicide attempt survivor or ideator and you would like to talk, please reach out. hello@suicidenoted.com is our email, and I would love to talk with you. And if you are interested in joining us on a live stream or a series of live streams, whether you are a suicide attempt survivor or not, I will be launching that very soon. One more place to have these conversations, perhaps expand those with whom I get to have these conversations with. If you're curious, reach out, same email. I'd love to get you involved. You can check the show notes to learn more about this podcast, including our membership, how you can help out with a one-time contribution. We could use the help, as well as the Noted Network podcast, training, and a bunch of other cool stuff. So check that out if you are curious. And if you listen on Spotify, there's a weekly poll. Check it out. I'd love your thoughts. On Apple, rating and reviewing really helps. Thanks so much for that. Finally, we are talking about suicide on this podcast. My guests and I don't typically hold back, so please take that into account before you listen or as you listen. But I do hope you listen because there is so much to learn. Today, I am talking with Camille. Camille lives in Maine, and she is a suicide attempt planner. Hey, Camille.
You know who you look like? And maybe somebody's told you. He just died.
Don't give me somebody who's like fucking 90 years old, please.
Well, no, I mean, you look like him when he was your age, but Alan Arkin.
I hope he was good looking. Alan Arkin.
Yeah, he's a great actor, one of our best. Yeah, all the greats have died, sadly. I mean, a lot of them they're old.
Oh, we still got some greats kicking it. Where are you, Camille?
I'm in Maine, way up north and near Belfast. I just moved from North Carolina. I moved from Clayton.
All right, not too far from me here in Chapel Hill. You gave me permission to share with our listeners your message that you sent to me March of 2023.
Yeah.
And I just heard you on The Moth. My life has been miserable and betraying. I'm an ethical vegan and animal activist and see the Holocaust created by non-vegans and the animals on Earth. I could write what family has done and continues to do to me and how lonely my life has been. I'm in North Carolina too, at the time maybe. I teach yoga here. And besides the fact that you're familiar with suicide, I wanted to be a dancer, but instead looked for a man to love me. So when I arrived here and I studied East and West Coast and salsa in Durham for years.
Even in the dance community, it's very kind of sexist. It's like how good you look, how young you are. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I just turned 61, but I wanted to be a dancer when I was young, but because of all the turmoil. So anyway, I started doing salsa on the East Coast and West Coast when I moved to Clayton, which was when I was late 40s. I'm very sensitive anyway, and I didn't go there to meet a man. I really just wanted to get good at dancing. But, you have to be picked to dance. In order to dance, you can't just dance by yourself because it's a couples type of dancing. And I get it that some people just overlook, they just like, who cares? Like, I'll just go pick somebody and then I'll just go out. And it was kind of like, oh my gosh, here we are again, where it's just like based on your looks and based on your youth. That was shit but that's one of my insecurities. And sometimes you just have to let people do whatever they're going to do and you just enjoy it anyway, right?
Yeah. And then you just added one more thing. My dogs, yoga, and Tai Chi keep me alive. Okay, here we are again, reconnecting after all this time.
Thank you for keeping me on the docket.
Oh, yeah. Appreciate you joining me and talking.
Well, thank you for having me. And I know your schedule is busy, so.
Not that busy. We're talking here primarily, though not entirely, about suicide.
Yeah.
And so let me just start off. In addition to thanking you, I want to know how many suicide attempts? Not everybody comes here has attempts. They, sometimes they're just like near attempts or long time ideators, as we say. But do you have a suicide attempt or more than one?
No, I've never attempted. I'm too controlling and thought about it when I was a teen. And I told my mother, and she said, go ahead. And I put a lot of hope in finding a guy to fix me. And honestly, I did have a man. He was my husband who I had 4 kids with, but I was so traumatized. He was traumatized too, but he just died from his miserable childhood at a pretty young age a few years ago. But had I been working on myself, we could have made the relationship work. So I did have somebody who cared about me. He really did love me, and I did really have it. But when you're not open, when you're so traumatized and you're not open to love, you're not going to receive it. So, I basically was the one who got a divorce from him, and I heavily regret it. I kept waiting for a guy to fix me. I did have the right guy. We had the 4 kids, and I kind of screwed up the kids. Not like I didn't really do anything particular to them, but I just was kind of impatient sometimes. And then, he died a few years ago in 2017, young, and that was a milestone for me. And then what people do to the animals in the earth and kind of the political situation and how it's just nobody cares. It's just, and I've actually had my life threatened for being a vegan, for saving animals. I drive around with a van that has my website on it, which says animal activism in big words, and my phone number's on there too. So I've had people call me and threaten me. My dogs and I might have to live in my van, in which case it probably won't be that safe because all my information is right there. I am very pragmatic. I'm not a kind of very spontaneous person, I guess. I'm creative, but I'm not very spontaneous. So yeah, I wouldn't just hang myself or anything like that. I wouldn't do anything like that, especially since I have dogs. They're very dependent upon me. So right. I do have a plan.
Let me just back up for a sec. You're not a suicide attempt survivor. This is a podcast in which I talk to either suicide attempt survivors, sometimes people who have been kind of close, have been considering it or thinking about it, particularly for a while. There's one other category that I rarely, it overlaps some, but you're in this unique situation, I think, because you're not those things. So typically I would say, I would love to talk, but it's not going to be an episode for the podcast because the podcast is about suicide. But you're saying you do have a plan.
Yeah.
That is a plan to end your life.
Yes.
So can we spend part of our time here talking about that? But a lot of the questions I typically ask don't really apply to you. Some of them do.
Well, ideating, I think about it a lot, but yeah.
All right, let's talk about that. When do you remember? You said you're 61.
Yes, I just turned 61. Time is ticking down.
Where are you from?
I'm from California. I'm from San Francisco, Auburn, and Lake Tahoe. And we lived in Oahu also, Oahu, Hawaii.
Do you remember, Camille, when you first started thinking about suicide? Because you said you think about it now sometimes. Is this dating back years or decades?
Yeah, because I just mentioned that when I was a teenager, I told my mother I wanted to commit suicide, and she said, go ahead.
You don't try, though.
No, I think I put it into a man. And of course, I want to be a dancer. I want to go to Yale and studied theater like Meryl Streep. And I grew up in a very well-educated family. Most went to prep school and to Ivy League. I wanted to go to Yale Drama School and be a director. I've always wanted that. But because of all the trauma, I just couldn't accomplish much of anything. I was not good at school.
When you're 15, you don't try. I know you stay alive. And I know you have plans and those plans don't work out, but do you continue to think about it? Do you recall?
I think underneath everything, but I think I numbed out by thinking if I just find a guy. That's what I was saying was I didn't achieve a lot of my goals because I was so focused on finding a guy to make me happy, kind of put everything to the side. I lived in Europe, but I really didn't study very hard. I didn't do a lot. I mean, as far as accomplishing a lot, because I was always thinking if I just meet a guy, then my life will start. Then I can start studying. Then I can start doing everything.
How old were you when you met and or partnered with Jeff? Is his name?
Yeah, we married. It was here in Maine 30 years ago because I just moved. He was from Maine. That's why I moved back here, is because he died coming back here. It was 30 years ago. We had our 4 kids here. We had no money. But, I look back, even though I was complaining all the time, I look back and that was the best part. That was the best time in my life. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to have money. It's funny because time does that. When you're in it, you're like, so much angst. And then when you look back, it's all this rosy and...
I think I was always angst-filled, man.
Well, I was always angst too. We so badly want to present to the world a different picture than we are. And I was so caught up in trying to be something that I wasn't. And I would get angry at the kids. I didn't hit them or anything, but I don't have a relationship with my kids. They're all in their 30s and have children. I just would get angry about small things, and I would get angry at Jeff instead of focusing on my own stuff. You can focus on how people are assholes and they don't like you or whatever. Or you can just say, you know what? I'm just going to take pieces of this, whatever good I can get out of it. I'm at that age where I'm now starting to look back on my life since Jeff is gone. And
you were saying about 10 minutes ago, going back to the suicide, and then I kind of cut you off. So were you going back to teenage Camille? Tell me more.
So my mother was married many times, and I'm an only child. Her first husband was my father, and he was a schizophrenic. Now, nobody told me he was schizophrenic, and she would send me on the plane to see him in LA when he was talking to the TV and eating dog food out of cans and very bizarre behavior. One time he called me, and he literally was not coherent. Like I had to be the adults in that situation. I told him I didn't want to live, and he told my mother. Then she said, what? She didn't care about the fact that I didn't want to live. She just said, why would you tell your father that? That's all she cared about.
So I know we're going back decades now, but so when you're a teenager and you tell this to your dad, he tells your mom, she says what she says. How does that feel? Do you remember?
Well, I always felt numb around her. That was my coping mechanism. That's what I feel now, particular now. But I mean, that's how I deal with stuff. It's not like I like to be like that, but she just didn't care. If I stood up for myself, she would tell me to move out, and I would be like 5 years old, and she'd tell me to move out. So where's a 5-year-old going to go?
Not the greatest mom.
That would be an understatement, but yes.
Right. Okay. And then at how old are you when you leave home?
17. I didn't finish high school. And like I said, I came from a wealthy family and nobody paid my college. So I've paid all my own stuff, or I got student loans, I should say.
I want to know, as you're going through life, is there a consistent feeling of not wanting to be alive? Is it an occasional thing? Is it spurty?
Well, see, that's the thing that's what I was saying. And it's hard to understand probably if you aren't like this, but I would numb out so I didn't feel that by thinking about men a lot, by thinking about if I just find a guy that will love me. So underneath all that was not one, because it would come to the surface sometimes. That's how I survived, was thinking if I just found a guy, if I'm just thin enough, if I'm just pretty enough. But see, I was always focused on those things, so I didn't have to focus on what I was really feeling underneath everything, which was not wanting to be here, being invisible.
Okay.
That one is real. I mean, that invisible thing is how I feel now sometimes too.
Not so easy to get rid of that thing.
Oh, man.
So how do you cope during this time?
I didn't really ever do drugs. I did get drunk a few times. My mother was a drunk. She was drunk every day, but she had cocktail parties. There was always an undercurrent. But like I said, to keep it tamped down was this feeling, if I'm just pretty enough, if I'm thin enough, if I'm smart enough, if I have a great career, then I'll be seen, then I'll be loved, and then I won't feel that. So there was always, but it would surface sometimes. It would surface.
What would happen when it would surface? Like, how would you get through it?
Rushing. My mother was a rusher. Her thoughts were rushing too. Just my thoughts would start rushing, moving around a lot, and start rushing from one thing to another.
Is that like ruminating?
It's just like stumbling over your words a lot because you're trying to talk and rush. She would always rush around the house and sometimes stub her toe or something, and she'd say, "Goddamn fucking shit." It was always a focus of outward rather than internal, like going inside. I'm much more of an inside person. Even when I was struggling with all that, I really did not want to become like her. So, but there was definitely that feeling. It was always, the suicidal feelings were always there, but they were just tamped down. And now, since I'm older and I can't get the attention, it's come to the surface, but I'm much more aware of things. And I teach yoga, so, I'm much more aware of things now.
Right, so when you're going through life and things are getting hard, you don't really drink or drug, which a lot of people do to cope.
Yeah.
Right? You're not doing that. What are you doing to get through the hour or the day?
Overeating and oversleeping, and they're my go-to still. I have a million things I want to get done in the day. Well, also I have a sleepy and dizziness issue. So, because she hit me in the head a lot. So I've had sleepiness throughout my life. Now, I don't know, some of it is physical, some of it is me, a coping mechanism. But now, whatever it is, I'm sleepy a lot. And so I'll have a list of stuff. And I'm like, the next morning, I'm like, holy shit, I had all that stuff to do and I just went to sleep. So I think it's the one thing that's kept me alive. Unfortunately, these things do keep us alive, the overeating, the oversleeping for me anyway. And for other people, it might be drugs, it might be alcohol or sex or whatever. But yeah.
And you're moving around.
Moving around. And I do have to say this. I slept with guys. I didn't enjoy it. The only person who loved me and I enjoyed sleeping with was my ex-husband, the one who died. But he really loved me. But the other guys I let, because I was love addicted. It wasn't about sex for me. It was about love. And I wanted to be loved and be seen. And I let these nasty, dirty guys touch me and do stuff. And also I felt like I didn't have good boundaries. So I felt like, oh, okay, if they like me, I must like them too. Because my mother would scream at me and tell me I was a terrible person all the time. So of course, what does a terrible person do? They're mean to people, right? So I did that, but I don't do it anymore. But I did it then. So there has been some good about getting older. I'm not going to lie to you.
When you're about 30,
I had my fourth child. Yeah, we had all our kids in our 20s.
You're raising your kids, and at some point, a couple things happen, and I'm kind of fast forwarding here. One, somewhat recently, Jeff passes away.
Well, yeah, but we weren't together. We were exes by that point. And he would say when he would see me, he was very destroyed as a human by the drugs he got into and also his terrible childhood. But he would say, no, I love you still, Camille. And I would be like, and now I feel terrible the way I treated him. But anyway, that we were already split when he was saying those things. I wasn't.
Also, at some point, and it's probably not one point, is you lose touch with your children.
Well, they lost touch with me. I would love to be in touch with them. And I did do some really good things, but I also feel guilty because I got mad about small things. I was late a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, like I know they're for individual people, and this might be a bit of a sensitive question, but like if I would ask them, why don't you talk to your mom? What do you think they might say?
I don't want to talk to her. She's erratic, and I'm not erratic, but they don't like the fact that I get angry about things. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, but I have emotion. I always was there for them. I would sit down at the table with them. But yeah, I mean, I said to them all the time, I'm not perfect. I'm sorry. And I'll do anything so we can have a relationship. So, and I'm not trying to do psychobabble. I'm just telling you what I did. So they have a relationship with me, but they don't want one. And I'm sure that, I want them to be healthy and happy. So if that makes them happy, more power to them.
That's a mom right there for sure. So in all this time, when you're going through life, how close did you get, or maybe you just didn't get very close to actually attempting?
Well, now I'm close. My kids got taken in East Tennessee when we lived there, when we lived in Johnson. Jeff moved back in with us, and some stuff got misconstrued. But anyway, they got taken and they were put in foster care. And that's another reason they probably don't want to talk to me. But there was nothing behind it. It was a lot of allegations and it's a lot of darkness. And my mother, of course, went to court against me when she didn't even know what was going on. That time I really wanted to. And I even wrote a letter to the judge. This is in the old days when you wrote letters. And I wrote him, I said, I'm going to drive my vehicle off the cliff, not realizing that made me look even worse because I can't see my children. Yeah, I didn't do it because somebody said, if you commit suicide, Camille, think about how that will destroy the children.
Interesting. And it takes a certain level of something, strength, or I don't know what it is, to feel that way and, not do it. That's how I think. Maybe I don't think how most people think, but I do.
Oh, yeah, I would say that's true. I mean,
throughout all this time, did you ever get any sort of mental health help?
Yes. And I see a therapist now. I just got approved for Medicaid, and he's a vegan. I've seen other therapists. Actually, some of them made passes at me. So I do want to put that out there, which caused a lot of problems.
Did you get a diagnosis you agree with?
Yeah, PTSD, very much so. And I definitely resonate with that.
Ever been in a hospital, a mental health facility?
So when the kids got taken, it's a long story, but we were in East Tennessee and Jeff went, I got mad at Jeff. I blamed him and he was living with us. We weren't married at the time. And he came up to me and we had to go to the court system the next day. And so he showed up. I didn't know where he was. I guess he was staying at a homeless shelter. And he came up to me and he said, I want to get my stuff out of the house. And I got mad. And I said, what the fuck difference does it make about your stuff when our kids are in foster care or whatever? And I hit his arm and he had me arrested. And so then I went to like a jail across the street. I've never been to jail before. That was really scary. Then they put me in Johnson City for 2 days, a mental health facility, because I said I was going to commit suicide without my kids. They just observed me. They said I had to take meds and I put them under my tongue and I spit them out. I didn't tell them that though.
Probably a good move not to tell them, right? Yep.
Yeah.
At some point, when do you start to think, I'm going to make a plan to end my life? How long ago is that?
Oh, that's been a couple of years now.
Is that about the, so you reached out to me about a couple years ago
Yeah,
too.
yeah. It was when I was in North Carolina. I said, I can't do this. The neighbors were awful.
So at that time, you move, but you also look around something, and you probably don't remember these details, but you message me.
I'm pretty good at finding stuff. When I heard you on the mod, I don't really remember, but obviously I did because I reached out.
When you say planning, what does that mean or look like?
Well, one of the reasons I came back to Maine was to be near Jeff's spirit, but also I want to put my body in the ocean because, I don't want it to be cremated and I want it to be part of the circle of life. And so, that's my plan and just how I'm going to do it. Like, I don't know if I'm going to take sleeping pills because it's not fun freezing in the ocean. I would not want to do that. And just doing that and, making sure my dogs have a place before I go. They put down over 1 million dogs a year in this country now, and they're more than likely get euthanized. So I don't have anybody. So, well, I just thought about it. I'm not going to make it to the next voting cycle if our country is even on this planet still. But I don't want to be old. I don't like being old. It's like your body's falling apart. I'm in Maine where there's ice everywhere. I bring in wood. I bring in 100 pounds of wood a day, which is, I like that. But what if I fell and I'm outside by myself? I don't know if other people think about this, but I sometimes post like my feelings about the animals and stuff, and I don't want to be here. And people are like, oh, you can't leave, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, but you're just writing that. Like, you don't care about me. You don't even know me. That's just something to write so other people will read what you write. So they'll think you're like a really nice person. But the deal is that nobody calls me. And look, I don't celebrate Christmas or Thanksgiving. To me, they're just fake anyway. But nobody cares if I live or I die. So that's one of the issues.
That's an issue for sure. Do you imagine being able to do it?
Yes.
Like when you think about it, you think, I'll be able to take those pills. I'll be able to do whatever you choose.
As long as the dogs are safe. If I didn't have dogs, of course, it's kind of a catch-22. Part of the reason I want to leave is because I'm an ethical vegan. I see what people do to animals. But I also have the dogs because of that, because there's so many dogs that need homes. So they kind of keep me here. But at the same time, I want to leave because of what people do to animals. So it's kind of a catch-22. But yeah, I see it. I fantasize about it. Every morning I wake up like, oh my God, I don't want to be here.
Is that right?
God, yes.
I don't know. So every morning you wake up.
All night. And I'm very high functioning, by the way. My house is set up for success. It's very clean. I've got exercise equipment, books, all the things I love, art.
How do you pay bills?
Well, I did inherit. So my mother inherited a lot of money. She lied about all that. She said she was so poor and she said it was all my fault. I'm like, I don't even know your life, lady. So she left it to myself and my 4 kids, but it's run out because I spent almost all of it coming up here. So that, like I said earlier, the dogs and I may be living in our van, which, I could probably get subsidized housing for my age range, but they don't accept dogs. They accept like little tiny dogs. And no, I have 4 big dogs and I'm an individual. I want to live on land and stuff. So
here's the thing. If I had this magic pill, for some reason I colored it pink and purple. Don't ask me why.
That's your favorite color.
Nah. And then I give you the pill. And if you take the pill, you go to sleep and you die and it's peaceful and there's no pain. And also if you want to add in this component, like no one even knows it's a suicide if that matters to you. This pill has all those qualities somehow magically.
Right.
Would you take the pill today if your dogs were safe?
Yeah, as long as my body's in the ocean because I want it to be eaten there.
Would you even care that no one knows it's a suicide or that doesn't matter?
Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, because I would think there's some people that actually want people to know, no, I chose to take my life.
I think people already know that on my Facebook because some people have reached out to me saying that they're concerned about me. So when I'm getting ready to go, I'm going to close off the comments and none of the trolls can get on there because there are a lot of people who hate on me because I'm a vegan. One of the reasons I write my feelings is for my grandkids because they're pretty young still, but that they'll see, hey, she loved animals and she loved the earth. That there was something good about her, unlike what my parents are telling me. But yeah, they'll know. They know that I'm out of here because of that. It's not like it's a secret. My managers have even been on my Facebook and said, I'm concerned about you, Camille. We live in a terrible world. I don't know what is wrong.
What if before you died, given what you shared about what's really important, you met somebody and you were really good. You had a really good connection with him.
You mean in love, like love, romance? I mean, yeah, if he was like Jeff,
That might
yeah,
prevent you from following through with this plan.
yeah. If he was like Jeff loved me unconditionally, but I was too young and too traumatized to feel anything. That's what I was telling you. I was very closed off. Finding somebody who loves you, who sees you for all the stuff, the negative, the positive, the stuff in the morning, whatever our issue, especially as we age, and still loves you. Because this is one thing about men. You're a man. I know.
Mm.
I've been on dates with guys. There's a good looking younger girl that walks by. Even when I was younger, this happened. And the guys, I can see the guy's trying to train himself on me, but I can see his eyes are going around his head, following the girl behind him. And it's so insulting, It's just like, oh my gosh. But see, Jeff, I mean, yeah, he was a man and he liked good looking women. He was just like your typical guy. He's very good looking himself, but that's a hard one. I don't know if guys like come like that. I think it's easier when you're young because I think when we're young, our nerve endings are so open and we're so open to the world. But when we're young, when we're older, we tend to be more jaded, more closed off. Everybody I meet, they've got a list of things they want in a person. But did we have that when we were young? No. I mean, I met him. I was not a vegan then. I met him on the Portland waterfront deworming fish. How
Oh.
unromantic is that? And how disgusting is that? And
Yeah.
he said, when he saw me, he said, that's the girl I'm going to marry. Yeah. So it really does happen like that. It really does happen.
Do you know why you're talking to me?
About suicide and
Like, why are we talking? Why do you feel like you want to talk? And this isn't just a conversation with me. I mean, other people hear it. That's how podcasts work, right? So like,
oh, okay, I can tell you why. Just like how I write on my Facebook, people think I'm doing it to feel sorry for myself. It's because so we feel connected with one another, especially now where people are not connecting as much, where people are being inside more on their cell phones. So I'm sure there's a few people that can resonate with me, and that's really why.
do you have friends?
No. When I was young, I had friends and I had them over a lot because my mother didn't spend any time with me. So I was always, and I didn't have siblings, but it was always because I was fun and eccentric, but it wasn't because they really liked me. I mean, I'm a little bit kooky sometimes and that can be fun to be around. And I like to laugh a lot. To have a real friend, they have to really care about you. And I've never really had that.
So
So,
right now you spend most of your days you're alone.
well, I teach yoga. Like I said, I try not to now. I'm much more mindful, but I do rush around a lot and I go into town and I talk to people. I'm very talkative, as you probably can tell. Like if I go to the co-op, because I eat organic, natural foods, I'm at the co-op, I'll talk to people, whomever. It's kind of it's a strange way to be suicidal and to be really open. I don't know.
Oh, I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe.
I'm an odd duck. Let's just say
Well,
that.
yeah, well, I want to pause that for a moment just because I don't know if that's true. I think maybe suicidal people, and this is just what I've learned having done this, aren't necessarily anything in particular. Some of
Well,
them are very talkative and very social. There's no one thing at all.
are you suicidal still?
I think I'm always going to be sort of on a passive.
Spectrum.
Yeah. I don't think people would need to worry about me actually doing that. I don't know if everyone would worry about it. Some people would probably welcome it. But anyway, yeah, I mean, and one of the things that helps me and keeps me going is doing this. So that's a kind of a interesting thing.
Well, you're right. I just thought about as we were speaking that there are people you hear about that there was the life of the party and all of a sudden they jumped out of the. Remember that girl? She's really beautiful. I think she was Miss America or something. She was one of the runners up. She was extraordinarily good looking. And she was interviewing the stars. She had a big job doing that for ET or something. And she just jumped out of a building. She suffered from depression. She had everything going for her. Intelligent, gorgeous, vivacious. And it was just like 2 years ago. And she jumped out of a building.
Well, it just doesn't work that way. When you say she has everything going for her, I can say definitively, unequivocally, she didn't. These checklists, these ideas that somebody has everything. But if somebody takes their own life, there's at least one thing they don't have. And you can call that thing, maybe it's not super tangible like money. And there is something probably they do not have. Maybe it's hope. Maybe it's health.
Do you know Gabor Mate? I mean, he does talk about that and how people will talk in generalities about why people are addicted. Well, they had everything. And he says, no, they didn't have everything.
Somebody could argue that you or I have a lot of things going for us.
Yeah.
But
It's
you're
true.
planning to end your life. I get what you're saying. I'm not trying to be a jerk here. What do you think people who know you well will say if and when they learn about your death in that manner?
It's not that people don't know me per se. I think they don't care. So it's just like, well, whatever. She was an animal activist. I wasn't for that. So it's whatever. I don't think people are going to care. I mean, I don't think anybody will care. I mean, I know that because they don't call me.
Everything you need to know is happening right now.
Yeah. I've told my therapist, I said, when I've told people I'm suicidal, it's not like I'm dumping on them because I don't even know if I've ever said that to anybody, honestly, because I'm too afraid to say that. I don't know. I don't know if that's today's day and age. It could be me. It could be for people like myself, which this is one of the reasons I'm here, is that we tend not to be authentic. I'm not authentic with people in the sense of not talking about being suicidal. I don't want to talk about that because I think that's too heavy, but
that's why we're here.
We're here, but when I'm with other people, I don't want to dump on them because then people are like, oh my God, Debbie Downer, who wants to be around that?
Camille non-appeal. Sean Yawn, #playing with first names.
I don't really have true friends. It's because I'm not real. It honestly is because I'm too afraid of people leaving, but guess what? They leave anyway because they know I'm not being real.
Another catch-22.
You can sit around and feel sorry for yourself, but ain't nobody coming to rescue you, baby. It's a bitch, man. It's a bitch because I wish I had a brother or sister I could reach out to.
Do you think you'll write a note?
No, because my notes are on Facebook. Everybody knows. I mean, even my managers are like, I'm concerned about you. Like down in Carolina, I mean.
So your suicide note is kind of like a collection of Facebook posts.
Yeah, I mean, people know. They know that I'm sad. I'm just going to write, please take care of the animals in the earth and do it all you can. Because obviously with Trump in power, he doesn't care about any of that shit. I mean, the Dems didn't either, but where we're headed, God knows.
If you were able to talk to I'm going to choose 15 years old because that's the age you said when you first said that to your mom and she said, go do it.
Yeah.
And you didn't do it. And here we are talking 45, 6 years later. What would you say to her, if anything?
To my mother?
No, to 15-year-old kooky, compassionate Camille.
Do well in school, be strong, just stick to the books, get your education, get into college, get therapy, get support, learn to love yourself. That's what I would say. And if you're in an unsafe situation, I don't think I was unsafe. She just didn't like me asking her for anything. But if you're in an unsafe, get out so you can get the fuck out of that place. Get out of Dodge. That'd be it. Do you think there's a genetic component to that? Sometimes that some people have a harder time getting healthy mentally.
I think there's a genetic component to most things far more than we give credit to.
Yeah.
I think we live in a culture where everything's about what you can do and you control everything. And sure, there's environmental. I'm not saying that's not true. I just think a lot of this stuff is genetic. And sure, we can say, all right, we know that I'm 5'9.5". That's genetic. Like that's hard to argue against. And we could I don't know how DNA works. People probably like, see it. Oh, I don't know how that works. But with all this other stuff, it's like, it's almost impossible to ever really know or measure or see or really understand. But for sure, all this shit about getting healthy and being resilient. Yeah.
I do think that some people are more prone to depression. I mean, Jeff, my ex-husband, even though he was a very passive person, he had terrible, terrible, terrible childhood, like no money too, from a different social class. And so he didn't have opportunities, but pedophiles in and out, garbage everywhere, blah, 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 always being evicted. He kind of looked at things more brightly than I did. I do think that I'm more of I look at the dark side more. You would probably like him because he was very kind-hearted. He was a humble person.
You have a memoir title?
Well, I thought about it, and I really thought Camille, but of course that name has been taken by
They're not going to write the book, so don't worry about it. But I gotta want to read it, so Camille might not be enough for me as a title.
Camille Downer.
That doesn't rhyme. Your name doesn't have to be in it. We want it to be very enticing to the reader. Like, ooh, what's that? Think about the things you like in life. Think about the things. I think there's something that might have to do with animals or the ocean.
The name of my website is Wild Ocean Appaloosa Woman.
Do you think when this episode comes out in 2-3 months, you'll be around?
Yeah, I've got the dogs. I just adopted another dog. See, when I do my podcast, if I'm living in the van with the dogs, my dream is to go to all the different sanctuaries in the United States and interview the people who run them. Definitely not the one in Maine. But yeah, but the other ones, and just finding out what their journey has been towards veganism, towards saving animals and stuff like that, and probably not edit it a lot because.
Wait, you want to start a podcast?
Well, I have one. I started it before the pandemic. I knew one thing was to have a format. I just knew that just instinctually. You stick to the same format, but I couldn't get anybody to interview.
Why is that?
Well, that's what I wonder. I don't know.
Well, who were you trying to interview?
Other vegans.
Oh, I wonder why you had a hard time. Guess I'm lucky. I have not had a tough time finding guests for this podcast.
That's because a lot of people want to commit suicide because this place is so awful. I mean, humans are awful. I mean, in large part, not everybody. And most everybody has something good about them. I mean, that is what it is. You know, everybody at one time was a young, innocent. They didn't have all this bullshit about their personalities, how everybody's fighting now on Facebook and blah, 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 and how people are against each other. And I'm not saying everybody's against each other, but a lot of people are. Do you want to share anything else with me before we get back to our lives? No, I do want to say thank you very much for having me here. My pleasure. I appreciate you connecting and talking. Okay, a memoir title idea. Living in a van with the dogs. I like that. That's a good one. We want the van and the dogs, and then we'll play around with a subtitle, but we don't have to do that right now. Always have a subtitle, though, but sometimes it's good to have a subtitle, yeah. I think most of them do. I like that. I'm a memoir title expert. I'm not necessarily a subtitle expert. I love it. No one's paying me for it. No one's paying me for anything, actually. Well, if I had a lot of money, I'd give you money. But I've given so much money. You can give me a little money. No, I'm just kidding. And my Trumpster neighbor says, Camille, you're going to live, because you give so much money away, you're going to live in your van down by the river. And I said, no, I moved to Maine to live down by the ocean. Living in the van with the dogs and the waves. Salt water. I don't know. I'm just cold salt. Anyway, and then the irony here is that you are wanting to put your deceased body in that body of water. Well, yeah, I'll put it in there while I'm dying. I mean, it's not going to be just put in there after I'm dead. Who's going to put it in there? Do you think anybody wants to take that responsibility? No, because then they could be an accessory. So you're gonna do something so maybe pills, and then go into that frigid water near Maine, which is going to be cold. Even in the summer, it's probably pretty cold. And then you're going to not be here. Well, if the pills don't work, I'll freeze to death, because even in the summer here, it's so cold. I'll be out pretty fast. It'll be tasty. I'll be a nice vegan snack. A nice vegan snack for some creature. Until that moment, or even including that moment, I wish you well. Thank you. You too. I appreciate you a lot. I was going to tell you something. I'm going to start miming and clowning. So in Belfast, there's a walkway along the ocean that a lot of people walk on. I'm start doing miming and clowning there. Miming and clowning down on the boardwalk. That sounds really cool. Yeah. I'm going to mime my way goodbye by waving at you and smiling and saying thank you again. Thank you so much. You're welcome. Hope your day is decent. You too. Take care. As always, thanks so much for listening and all of your support, and special thanks to Camille in Maine. Thanks, Camille. If you are a suicide attempt survivor or ideator and you'd like to talk, I'd like to talk with you. I'd love to talk with you. Please reach out. hello@suicidenoted.com. You can learn more about this podcast by checking the show notes. You will find there, among other things, information about our membership, the Noted Network podcast training, and ways you can support us. And hey, we could use the support. Thank you, however you are involved. I really appreciate it. And that is all for episode number 266. Stay strong. Do the best you can. I will talk to you soon.